Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie, and right now Memorial Day weekend is coming up. I'm sure everyone is very, very excited, but one thing my mama always taught me is that before a big long weekend comes, or before you go on a vacation, you clean your house. You do that deep clean that we all hate doing, but we all love the feeling of our home once it's been taken care of. I'm talking about scrub down that backsplash, clean out the fridge, vacuum everything, dust above into the vents, like just all the works of cleaning. What I want you guys to do with this episode is treat it like your marketing cleanup. I basically want to walk you through 10 different ways you can give your marketing strategy that same deep clean you want to give your house before the Memorial Day weekend, so that on Tuesday morning when we all come back to work, we can start out a little bit fresher and a little bit cleaner than we were before. Cleaning out your marketing is extremely important because honestly, sometimes at the beginning of the year, we can create this whole marketing strategy. We can be so excited to go forward and do it. But then, this time of the year comes, we're all in quarantine now and things are stressful. So you're just sort of blowing through it and you've sort of forgotten that marketing strategy you've had because you've just been pushing through it. And more than that, not only have you forgotten it, your marketing strategy has probably changed just due to the current climate, situations, money, content you've been creating, just all of the things. So much has changed. So doing a deep clean of your marketing and reviewing your marketing strategy, which we'll spend a little extra time talking about, is so important to do. I honestly think once a month, but if it slides under the rug a few more times, then don't feel bad because you could do it right now with this podcast, and I'll do another check-in in a couple of months just because it's really important to stay on top of that. So just to start out though, let's talk about what is new in the marketing world. I always really like talking about what is new in the marketing world because I think it helps give you guys a little bit more perspective and myself some perspective on what is happening in the world. What are the big companies doing to help deal with the current situation that we're all dealing with? Obviously, a lot is going on right now. So I think it's really important and very, very helpful just to see what the big companies are doing. If it has anything to do with the coronavirus, even if it doesn't, it still is definitely helpful and useful information. So let's jump right in with our first story. Our first news story is that PewDiePie signs an exclusive live streaming deal with YouTube. So gaming star PewDiePie has signed an exclusive deal to live stream on YouTube after switching to a rival platform in 2019. The 30-year-old Swedish video maker began posting videos on YouTube in 2010. PewDiePie is YouTube's biggest independent video maker with more than 104 million subscribers. But he signed an exclusive deal with the rival platform Dive in 2019. Since then, PewDiePie said returning to YouTube was the natural fit as he looked for new ways to connect with his fans. So this is a very interesting story because I don't know how many of you follow this world or this stream of entertainment, but PewDiePie and YouTube have had a interesting relationship over the years, to say the least. He definitely is YouTube's biggest star, and he definitely brings a lot of attention with him. But that means when he messes up, the entire world of YouTube is watching. So there has been a lot of back and forth between him and the company for years, and it wasn't a shock to a lot of people when he decided to sign an exclusive deal with a different platform. But a lot of people aren't shocked that he's coming back either because all of his fans are there. So it does make sense from both the marketing perspective of PewDiePie and what he wants his brand to be and how he wants to connect with his audience. But also it makes sense for YouTube because every time YouTube has said, we're done with him, we're not promoting him anymore, he's not going to be in YouTube Rewind, the backlash has been major. People have always been extremely, extremely upset. So I do think it's important for YouTube and PewDiePie to find a relationship where they're comfortable with each other and it can benefit both of them, because there definitely is a way for that to happen. So I would encourage you to go look up parts of this story on your own. I don't see it fitting to talk about the entire timeline of PewDiePie and YouTube's relationship on this podcast. It could be an entire podcast, basically, is what I'm saying. And it doesn't have a lot to do with marketing, but it is very interesting, and it's always interesting to see how companies like YouTube handle situations like this. So go check that out if you're interested. But if you already know the full story, then please comment it down below what your thoughts are of him rejoining the platform. Do you think this will be a positive benefit for him and his fans, and do you think YouTube will also get some positive benefits out of this? Let me know in the review down below or reach out through social media. Our second news story is that McDonald's is going to look drastically different when it opens back up. When McDonald's restaurants reopen their dining rooms, customers should expect stickers on the floor encouraging social distancing and the closure of self-serve beverage bars. Workers wearing masks might check with a thumbs up or kindly ask you to move away from others. The chain, which is preparing you to reopen its locations to dine-in customers as some U.S. states loosen the stay-at-home orders, recently sent out a detailed instruction manual to the franchise operators in the United States. So it's basically a very long document that is detailing how you need to keep your store clean, what regulations are necessary, and what is the minimum amount of distance people need to keep from each other if you are to open your franchise. So obviously a 59-page document probably is only still scratching the surface. Guys, Walmart, McDonald's, Disneyland, things are going to be very, very different. And I think we all need to start getting used to that idea, because it's going to be like this for a little while, I think. But also, I don't know. I do think it's very interesting how McDonald's is going about their reopening, as it's very interesting how a lot of companies are going about the reopening. Let me know what stories you've heard about companies reopening, or some crazy regulations you've heard, or just how things are going to be different in the review down below, or reach out through social media. Our third news story is that the new Sony branding hints at a Marvel-inspired expansion. On May 12th, Sony unveiled its PlayStation Studio brands, sparking a number of outline comparisons between the Xbox Game Studio and even Marvel, owing to similar styles of all three logos. So this is obviously very interesting, because Sony for a while did own a lot of the rights to the Marvel franchise, and for a while there it seemed like they were going to be buying it back, and people were pretty upset about that, especially when it comes to the Spider-Man movies and the Spider-Man franchise. Obviously, that has all been dealt with for the time being. However, this new branding is hinting that they might be getting those rights back from Disney, which on its own would be an extremely complicated marketing ordeal, but it would also be extremely interesting. So I honestly don't know if that is what they are trying to hint at with this new logo. I encourage you to go look up the logo and then come up with your own thoughts. Honestly, I don't see them as being that similar, but people really are worried that this is hinting at that. But I'm here to say, don't worry. I don't think this is how it would be announced that Sony is buying Marvel back. I don't think Sony will ever buy all of Marvel back. It just seems very unlikely to me. From a marketing standpoint, it is interesting to see them release a logo that does have very similar qualities to the Marvel logo, but branding is branding, and if they just really enjoyed the color scheme, they really enjoyed the fonts, then it makes sense, right? Sometimes that's what it comes down to. But let me know your thoughts in the review down below, or reach out through social media. Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast, but when we come back, we are going to jump into our 10 different tips of how you can clean up your marketing before the long weekend. So stay tuned for that, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop. and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again and again, black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and on today's episode of the podcast, we are talking about how you can clean up your marketing. So marketing is sort of like a house, and I like using this analogy for a lot of different things when it comes to marketing, because think of it when you do holiday marketing. Before you do any sort of holiday decorating on your house, you're going to make sure it's clean first, which is why before you start any holiday marketing campaign, you probably do things like maybe take a look at your marketing strategy, maybe rework the budget, maybe look at your team. You just sort of evaluate all the equipment you already have before you go out and buy a brand new Christmas tree. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do some Memorial Day cleaning of your house. My mother always told me, never leave for a long weekend, never leave for a holiday unless your house is clean. So that is what we are going to do today. Right before the long weekend, we are going to go through 10 different things that you have to clean up in your marketing strategy. This way, when you come back on Tuesday morning, things are going to be so clean, so fresh, so nice. It is going to be like sleeping on a brand new set of sheets, I promise. So let's jump right into that. But before we get started, I would just love to encourage you guys to take a moment to please write a review of this podcast. I ask it every podcast because it would mean so much to me if you could do that. We need feedback on this podcast so that I can understand what you guys want to hear, what you don't want to hear, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you like something, if you don't. And the best way for me to get feedback is to write that review. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your feedback. So please, it'll only take a minute. I promise. You do not have to write an essay, but please write a review. It would help me out a lot. It would help the podcast get better. And it would be great to connect. I'm not going to lie to you. It'd be really great to connect. Right now, the coronavirus, it's very hard trying to find a source of connection. And I really think this could be it for a lot of us. So let's start talking. Let's start building this community and let's connect together. But for now, let's jump right back into our list. Number 1, go through your customer journey. So if you are an e-commerce site or you have some sort of retail site, doesn't matter what it is, if you sell your merchandise online, then I would encourage you right now to open up your web page. Make sure you go incognito or use a different web browser, whatever you have to do. Make sure you're just not cookied in. And start reviewing your customer journey for the entire buy flow. Say you're going to buy a shirt. What is your sizing options like? How do you know how that shirt is going to fit your customer? How do you know what color it's really going to be? How easy is it to find the type of shirt you're looking for? And then once you buy it, how easy is it to make an account? How easy is it to put in your credit card information? How easy is it to actually purchase the item? And then how long does it take to get to your door? When it gets to your door, what does it look like? Doing things like this really helps you get into the mind space of your customer and ensure that your customer journey is up to their standards. Because here's the thing, you can have a high quality product at a reasonable price. You can have amazing marketing. You can do all of the wonderful over the top things. You could write handwritten notes to all of your customers thanking them for purchasing. But if your customer journey on the website at any point is unreasonable, is awkward, is clunky, is hard to work with, it freezes, weird things pop up, it's distracting, then people aren't going to buy it. They're going to stop. So what I want you to ask yourself is a couple of questions when you go through your customer journey. Number 1, how easy is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Number 2, at any point does this become too complicated? And number 3, is this something that is actually fun to interact with, or is it just more something I actually have to do? You don't want it to be a game. Don't get me wrong. It does not need to be a 10 out of 10 fun experience for all your customers, but it should be slightly engaging. Number 2, go through your data and look for common patterns. So right now is a really great time to review your data from January until May. This will give you a good chunk of time to really take a look at how your marketing strategy has been performing. So you're going to look for a couple of different patterns. Number 1, you're going to look to see if there's any spikes. What in it spikes? Why? Who? What? When? Where? Answer all those questions when it comes to spikes. But answer all those questions to when it also spikes down, when there's a sudden downturn. Why aren't people liking this type of post? Who isn't liking this type of post? Who is liking this post? If it's only one person, who is that one person that really likes it? And do they like the rest of your post? So review your data, look for common patterns. This way, later when we get to it, and you're reviewing your marketing strategy, you can use that data to be like, okay, well, I've noticed that a lot of people like it when we do DIY videos, using the different ways you can use our coffee beans and other recipes in your house other than just coffee. So we should maybe do more of those than we originally planned in our marketing strategy. So doing your cleaning through your data and looking for common patterns right at the start of your cleaning list can really help you prepare for the rest, and it'll get you out on a good foot. Plus, I hate looking at my data, so just getting it out of the way is super, super helpful. Number 3, clean up your buyer personas. So for those of you that don't have buyer personas, this might be a good time to create buyer personas. But basically, it's the idea in your marketing strategy. You will present it to your board. You'll present it to your boss if you just work in a marketing company, or you'll present it to, like stakeholders, anyone. But basically, it's who is your customer? You've created a little persona. You've used a stock image, and it's like, our buyer persona is Stephanie. Stephanie is between the ages of 25 and 35. She has 2 kids. She has this type of income. It's basically a visual representation of who your audience is. That way, when people want to invest in your company, you can bring that out and be like, this is the type of person who usually shops at our company. We have this many customers who fit that persona. But when you're going through your data in step 2, maybe you notice that Stephanie isn't your main buyer anymore. Maybe you notice that it's Tom, and Tom's between the ages of 45 and 55, and he likes buying your packages because of X, and he makes X amount of money. So use your data to help you clean up your buyer personas, or if you don't have them, use your data to make buyer personas, because buyer personas really, really can help you when it comes to reviewing your marketing. Number 4, reevaluate your keywords. So a lot of you probably pay for some sort of SEO marketing, or maybe you do SEO marketing, or maybe you do keyword marketing. Right now is a really great time to, again, take a look at your data and see what keywords people are responding to. Which ones aren't? Which ones are you using that people aren't responding to at all? And which ones are you paying for that people are really responding to? Because here's the thing. Maybe you have 5 keywords and people are really, really excited about 3 of them. you can ditch the other 2 and allocate that money to the other 3, or vice versa. But basically, it's a really great time just to take a step back and reevaluate those keywords and see what is actually helping. Number 5, review your email list. So I'm sure so many of you have Facebook ads where you send them out into the world, they fill out a form, the leads get sent back to you, and then they go onto some sort of email list. You send emails every week, maybe twice a week, and you never hear back. And you're starting to wonder, why aren't I hearing back? Now is a good time to review that email list and look for duplicates, fake accounts, bots, dummy accounts, your mother's email. Just basically review that email list so that you can get a better understanding of who is actually on it. And if you get an understanding of who is on it, maybe you can start to understand why they're not responding. Because if you're sending out emails for a Stephanie, but a Tom is reading it, maybe Tom doesn't want the type of content you've been creating for Stephanie. So it's a really great time to review your emails to, 1, look for errors such as bots, dummy accounts, and your mom just constantly writing in there to make you feel better about your leads. And instead, take a look at who is actually on there and what do they actually want to hear from you. So once you review your email list, you'll start having an easier time creating the content for your emails so that people actually want to engage with it and respond back. All right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and take another break from the podcast, but when we come back, we have 5 more cleaning up tips for you. So stay tuned for that, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and on today's episode, we have been talking about cleaning up your marketing. So we reviewed 5 different ways you can clean up your marketing before the break, and now that you are back, we are going to go through our final 5. Basically, the point of today's episode is to make sure you have a nice clean slate for your marketing to really finish out the rest of the year. When January comes around, we get very, very excited to fresh start, new me, new company, new marketing. We are going to hit it so hard this year. Look at our amazing marketing strategy. Isn't it so great? But then May comes around and things have gone a little bit sideways. Things are vastly more complicated, especially right now because, guys, we're in the middle of a flippin' pandemic. Of course, your marketing strategy is not going to work the same way you thought it would in January. And even if there wasn't a pandemic going on right now, your marketing strategy would probably still need a little bit of pivoting. So when we clean up our marketing and when we look at our marketing strategy, it is a great way to really ensure that we are on the correct path that we want to be on. It's the same path we set out for in January, but maybe the roadmap is going to look a little bit different now. So before we get into our list, I have a question for you. I'm sure you absolutely love the marketing podcast. Otherwise, you would not be listening. But I want to encourage you to check out the other amazing podcasts that are on the GSMC Podcast Network. I love working for the GSMC Podcast Network because I was a fan of the network way before I was ever a host. We have so much content. You can't even start to imagine the amount of podcasts that we have. We have sports, entertainment, social media, food, beauty, wrestling. We have everything you could possibly want and more. It is like walking into a candy store, and if you want lollipops, suckers, and Twizzlers, you can have it with the GSMC Podcast Network. So if you haven't already, head over to our main network and check out some of our other podcasts. Right now, I've really been loving the technology podcast as well as the beauty podcast because, guys, right now we're all locked indoors, so why not learn how to do my makeup really well? So I would encourage you all to go over there, check out some more podcasts. But before you do, don't leave me hanging. Make sure you write a review of this podcast. All right, enough talking about how amazing the network is. Let's get back into today's episode. So just to review, the 5 cleaning steps you should have done by now to get to this point are: number 1, go through your customer journey. Number 2, go through your data and look for common patterns. Number 3, clean up your buyer personas. Number 4, reevaluate your keywords. Number 5, review your emailing list. So if you have done all of that, then you are ready for tip number 6. Go through your social media posts. And I don't mean go through this week's. I mean, don't check on the one you did today. I want you to go back to the beginning of when you created the Instagram for your company. And I want you to get mean about it. Be critical. Make it take a look at it as if it is your teenage daughter. You just found out she has Instagram and you're going through that to make sure everything is up to your standard of parenting. So get critical with it. What don't you like? What do you like? Who likes this? Who doesn't like that? Does this still match your brand? Was that something dumb to post? Should we not have done that? Was this only to please somebody else? Do I still like it? If you can get mean about your social media posts and be very critical about it, again, just like your teenage son or daughter was posting online and you're going through to be like, well, I'm your parent. Let me see if I think this joke is funny. If you are able to get that critical about your social media posts, then you will be able to have a much cleaner, more sustainable, and more current feed. Because here's the thing, guys. When people decide why to follow you, they're not looking at individual posts. Maybe an individual post brought them there, but what they're actually doing is reviewing your feed at a perspective of just looking at it. They're not clicking in. They're not looking to see the likes. Does it all look aesthetically pleasing together is what they are looking at, and that is what makes their decision. So review your old social media posts and then take a look at your feed to be like, does this all flow together? Does this all look good? Because when it comes to social media, it really is about how it looks. It's not about substance. Number 7, review your current strategy and be ready to pivot. So we're at step number 7, guys. This is the step you've all been waiting for. Yes, we have more steps after that. And you might be wondering, how do we have more steps after that? Well, it's pretty simple, because at this point, you have cleaned up your email list. You have looked at your leads. You have looked at your data. You've created your personas again. You've reevaluated your keywords. So now is the time to look at your marketing strategy, because you're going to have all of the data you could possibly need to really, really dig in and take a look at what is going to work, what is currently working, what isn't working. And guys, I'll be the first to say it. Not everything you thought was going to work is working right now. You might think, oh, this ad is going to work. It just needs a little bit more time. It just needs a little bit more money put into it. I just need more resources. I need more time. No. If you started an ad in January and it is not performing the way you thought it would in May, it's never going to. It does not matter how much money you put into it. It does not matter how much time you put into it. Your customers are not responding to it. And this isn't just for ads. If you thought events were really going to be your big hit this summer, guess what, guys? They're probably not. But also, maybe you're reviewing your data and you're like, okay, but we are getting a lot of positive feedback from these Instagram Live events we've been doing, and we had never planned to do those before. Include those in your marketing strategy. So when you're reviewing your marketing strategy, you're not just looking to take things out, you're looking to put new things in. I.e., like if you thought you were going to never do an Instagram Live, but now you're doing them all the time and your audience loves them, account for that in your marketing strategy. How do you plan to do more of those going forward? So really, you need to have 2 lists here. Things we need to take out and things we need to put in. And then, guys, I want you to spend a minimum of 2 hours reviewing your marketing strategy and asking yourself, does this work or doesn't this work? And then putting in all the stuff you want to work. And put it in with intention. Don't just chuck it in. Think, how often should I be doing Instagram Lives? How often should I be posting DIY videos? How often should I be vlogging? Ask yourself these questions. This way you're able to write your marketing strategy with intention, so that when we review it in another couple of months, you can say, this worked because we planned to make it work. All right, guys, so now your marketing strategy has been cleaned up. It is good to go. What are you going to do next? Step number 8, remove inactive leads. Go through everything. If this person's not buying anymore, I'm not sending them emails. If this person isn't paying their subscription bill, we're not sending them our subscription box. If this subscriber isn't liking and commenting, you don't remove them, obviously, but don't bring them attention either. Just get rid of all that riffraff. Basically, this is the dusting. You've cleaned your house, and you're just getting rid of the dusting. You're taking the trash out. Number 9, evaluate how much you like your brand. This is a hard one. Because here's the thing, it's important to do this. It is important to do this once every 4 months. It is important to do it every day. But once every 4 months, take some time to yourself and truly, truly consider how much your brand is actually important to you. Because if you're just doing it to do it, then maybe you need to consider rebranding, which seems really scary, but your marketing isn't going to work if you don't love your brand. And that's just the truth. Number 10, get a stranger or a friend to review your final product. So you have done everything. You have considered all the variables. Everything is shiny and beautiful. Now you are inviting friends over to your house for the barbecue, and you're going to ask them, hey, do you like these posters I hung up over here? Give me your honest opinion. So what I want you to do is send your marketing strategy, send your website, send your social media pages over to a friend. It does not have to be a close friend. I do not recommend your mother. And get them to review it with strangers' glasses on. Be like, give me your honest feedback. Tell me what you think. What could I change? This way, everything's done. You've cleaned up everything. But maybe you got so down in the dirt of scrubbing the baseboards that you forgot, oh, right, I should actually vacuum. They're just going to help you pick up those little things that maybe you missed. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app, and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.